Hello, hockey fans from around the world. I am Richard Cote, the producer of the Pro Hockey News podcast. It is the second line edition of the podcast, and you know what that means. It means I'm joined by the publisher and owner of ProHockeyNews.com, Lou Lafredo. Lou, how are things in your corner of the world?
Windy.
Spring! It's spring in New
Spring.
Mexico!
It blew a billboard down over on I-40 over the Big I yesterday. So yeah, it's crazy. And again, we have not had anything fall from the sky except billboards since November 7th. So
Oof, that's
yeah. So it's an interesting spring so far.
that's a rough stretch.
Yeah.
But I don't miss it that much. The season of wind. It also means I am joined by one of two snarky Canadians on this podcast, Jacob Doherty. Jacob, what are the feelings like in Edmonton these days?
We have feelings, I think. I hope. But it is springtime over here. It's getting warmer. It's good. Can't complain.
All right. And new to the podcast lineup here, snarky Canadian number two, Nicholas Principe. Nicholas, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm all right, guys. How's everyone?
Doing fantastic. Cannot complain here. Listeners, this episode of the Pro Hockey News podcast is brought to you by My Custom Sports Chair. Head over to mycustomsportschair.com, enter in code PHN15 to save yourself 15% off your purchase of one of the sweetest chairs you can throw into your fan cave. As I had mentioned before we started recording this podcast, I have lost track of all time. I've been off of work for the last couple of days and uh, didn't realize that today was March 7th, the trade deadline for the NHL. For some reason, I thought it was Monday. So everybody so kindly let me know that it was today. So listeners, we will have a lot to talk about on the NHL trade deadline coming up. But first, Lou, I hear those pipes. I hear those drums.
Oh, Danny boy.
Take us into bangers and mash.
Yes, absolutely. So before we get to the top four, there's a team I want to highlight just for their recent record. It really isn't recent as much as it's lengthy. The Glasgow Clan um, have accumulated 20 points of their last 11 games, and they have not lost any of those games in regulation. This
Wow.
team is now 10-0 and 9-0 and 2 in their last 11, which is just staggering um, for anybody. But especially a team like the Glasgow Clan, who historically have had difficult times pulling great rosters together and competing with the upper elites of the EIHL. This season, again, over the last 11 games, they are just spectacular. But the entire season, they've been actually pretty strong. They're sitting in the seventh spot so far, so they're and comfortably above the cutoff line for the playoffs. Uh, they're one of these teams that, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, I would not want to have them in the first round. They're playing that well. It's a really concerted effort, beating, and this isn't 11 games against the lower half of the EIHL. This has been pretty well spread out, including beating Sheffield, Cardiff Devils, and Nottingham Panthers, as well as, in fact, the Belfast Giants are in that string as well. And so that's the cue really to look at the top four this this week. And again, Belfast Giants remain in the top spot in the EIHL. Sheffield has now moved into the second spot, 1 point ahead of the Nottingham Panthers, who are sitting there in the third spot, and mentioned them just a bit ago. Cardiff Devils are coming in the fourth spot. They're a bit further back 5 points back of Nottingham, but they have a comfortable clearance between themselves and fifth place. Although Coventry Blaze have turned their season back around. If you remember, guys, that we talked about Coventry early on this season, really playing well and were challenging really for the top spot in the EIHL early on in the season and went through a rough patch that lasted for probably half of December, most of January, but they've now really turned it around and sitting in the fifth spot in the league and again comfortably in position, I think, for the playoffs. And those top four have already clinched for the postseason because there are not I don't think there are 20 games left in the season, but they spread it out enough. They'll go into April. So, Richard, that's bangers and mash for this week.
All right. Thank you, Lou, for that update. Let's bring it back here to the North American continent, where we will take a look at the standings in the minor leagues, starting with the ECHL, as we always do, in the Eastern Conference. Starting with the North Division, we have the Trois-Viers Lions on top with 77 points. The Wheeling Nailers in the second spot with 67 points. The Norfolk Admirals in the third spot with 67 points. And the Worcester Railers in that number 4 spot with 58 points. Moving down to the South Division, we have the Florida Everblades still on top of the division with 81 points. The South Carolina Stingrays, the surging South Carolina Stingrays, in that number 2 spot with 79 points. The Jacksonville Icemen in the number 3 spot with 76 points, and the Orlando Solar Bears in that number 4 spot with 68 points. Moving over to the Western Conference in the Central Division, we have the Toledo Walleyes still on top of the division with 78 points. The Fort Wayne Comets not far behind with 71 points. The Iowa Heartlanders in that number 3 spot with 70 points. And the Bloomington Bison seems like by default in that number 4 spot with 51 points. In the Mountain Division, we have the Kansas City Mavericks, who remain on top. As we checked in with them a couple weeks ago, they are still on top of the division with 77 points. The Tahoe Night Monsters in that number 2 spot with 70 points. The Tulsa Oilers with 70 points in the number 3 spot. And the Wichita Thunder rounding out your top 4 with 67 points. Lou, let's go back to the South Carolina Stingrays. 8-2-0 in their last 10. They have been putting on a surge to kind of keep pace with the rest of the division, to be honest. They've made up a little bit of ground on Jacksonville, put a little bit of distance between them. They are only 2 points behind the Florida Everblades. I mean, we expect this from South Carolina and from Florida. They are two just perennial top teams in this division and in this league. But how are the South Carolina Stingrays getting it done in the last couple of weeks?
I think it starts and ends with the goaltending core. If you take a look at their stats so far, the top 2 are comfortably under 2 goals against average. The worst is really 2.41, and that's Seth Eisel. He's 2.41, but over this stretch at 8-2-0, I would put most of the credit back on the goaltenders. A couple of shutouts along the way, and games where they are winning, they're really just giving up 1, maybe 2 goals over this stretch. There's nothing wrong. That's not to ignore the offense and defense on this team, but I put most of it on the goaltending.
Yeah, what is it? Looks like they are a plus 78 on the
Yes.
season.
Yeah.
In goal differential, definitely generating plenty of offense. They got the most goals scored in their division, and the second least amount allowed in that South Division. So, I mean, this is what we expect coming on down the stretch from South Carolina. Chasing Florida. These are 2 top teams that we're going to see come Kelly Cup playoff time. So exciting as we move on.
Yeah.
towards the rest of the season. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, interesting though, Richard. Before you move on to the AHL,
Mhm.
one of the things the Stingrays have have to battle against right now is Jacksonville Icemen,
Yeah.
who they won 9-1 the other night in Allen, Texas, and Jacksonville this season has managed to put on a show, particularly on the offense, and they are playing very well. And not that they were typically doormats, but this season they're a solid team, and unfortunately for the Stingrays, they have to chase them down as well.
Yeah. Jacksonville 7-0-3 in their last 10 as
Right,
well.
right.
Um, they are they've scored the second most goals in the division, right behind South Carolina. Actually,
Yep.
when I say just behind, 19 goals behind Jacksonville, but second in the division in goals
Yeah,
scored,
yeah,
and not too shabby goals against, 149 on the season. So
yeah.
we'll track that down. You can catch all the latest news at prohockeynews.com. We'll be tracking the latest developments in the ECHL and the AHL as we move over there and check out the top standings for each division, starting out with the Atlantic Division. As you would guess, the Hershey Bears still on top of the division, 71 points. Providence Bruins in the number 2 spot with 68 points. The Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in that number 3 spot with 66 points. And the Charlotte Checkers in that number 4 spot, making it a very tight race as we head towards the end of the season, also with 66 points. In the North Division, we have the Rochester Americans on top with 74 points. Just behind them, the Laval Rockets with 73 points. The Cleveland Monsters in the number 3 spot with 66 points. And the Toronto Marlies, near and dear to Nicholas's heart, with 65 points, rounding out your top 4. In the Central Division, the Texas Stars are on top with 67 points. Right behind them, the Milwaukee Admirals with 65 points. The Grand Rapids Griffins in the number 3 spot with 64 points. And the Chicago Wolves with 57 points, rounding out that top 4. In the Pacific Division, as we had expected, the Coachella Valley Firebirds on top with 70 points. Then we got a little bit of a shakeup. Number 2 spot, we have the Colorado Eagles with 68 points. In the number 3 spot, we have the Calgary Wranglers in the with 66 points, and the Ontario Reign rounding out your top 4 with 65 points. Lou, I was trying to find a team to narrow down here in the AHL, and then I just happened to notice that every single team in that number 1 spot has won, 6 or more games of their last 10. All of them doing fairly well, trying to maintain that lead as we're a little over a month left in the season as we move towards the Calder Cup playoffs. But I thought maybe it's not a little too early to start talking playoffs and a little playoff primer. Lou, what do you expect out of these top teams going towards the playoffs?
When you look at the top four, the top division, well, sorry, the divisional leaders, you'll be able to
Yeah,
cut that out later in post-production.
I totally will.
Um, I don't see any of the divisional leaders losing that top spot through to the end of the season. If you look at the Texas Stars, they have been really beating up on the teams underneath them, who are those who are chasing them. Particularly this past week, Texas did a number on the Griffins. Um, when you look at the Pacific Division, Coachella Valley did the same thing to the Calgary Wranglers this week. So now, that's how and they're these are no longer 3-point games. They're just taking the two and running with it for both the Texas Stars as well as the Wranglers. Um, Hershey, Hershey has had that. I think that 7-3 record that Hershey has right now is a little bit deceptive because this season or this year, I should say, 2025. They've had some rough patches over that month and a half or so. Um, I think the difference is that the rest of that division is far weaker than they were last season, although the Providence Bruins remain a tough act to chase as well in that division. The interesting one, if there is that's that North Division with the Mercs up in the top spot.
Mhm.
They are probably, if there's one team here that would probably lose out, to be the Mercs, the Americans losing out to the Rocket in second place. But the top four, I think, are pretty solid. You've got Cleveland that's playing just having a great season. And I think because the rest of this division happens to be weak, I think this is where the Toronto Marlies will probably stay in that fourth spot. Cleveland has had the Monsters have had a great season. Um, they've gone through rough patches like any team does, but that's how I see the four divisions, and I think the leaders are going to be right there at the end. With the only question in my mark, like I said, is Rochester.
So going into the playoffs,
Right.
all these divisional leaders being their top seeds in their respective brackets as we get into the mess of what the AHL playoff bracket is. Um, which which team would you least want to face in that first round? Or I guess because some of them get a bye.
Yeah, yeah.
Which one would you not want to face first?
I would not want to face the Texas Stars. Uh, Texas has got a s- look, they're a solid team, and now with Dallas picking up um, a little nugget at the trade deadline here today,
Mhm.
um, th- Texas will continue to have a good solid core on the defensive side, and one that has played together all season. There's nobody moving up anytime soon. So Texas, in my mind, would be the one team I probably would not want to face. Hershey, I think, can be had
Yeah,
a bit. The Americans, maybe, and Coachella Valley, I think, has some weaknesses, but the Texas Stars, I think, are uh, the team I wouldn't want to face. Yeah.
agreed. I think I would rather, if I were a team in the playoff hunt in the first chance I get to match up with somebody in the Atlantic Division, I would rather face Hershey than Providence or the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Um, I think those two teams scare me more than the Hershey Bears at this point of the season.
Right.
Um, but playoffs are a different beast, and we'll see how that all shakes up
Right.
in about a month. All right, so that does it for the standings in the minor leagues. I think now is when we bring in Jacob for the PWHL corner. Jacob, what's happening in the PW?
Um, Boston right now is taking a big surge, going 7-1-2 with two overtime losses in their last 10, and just shot up right to third and has a game in hand over the Toronto Scepters for that second place. So Boston's been playing great. They've been scoring a lot of goals, and it's working out great. The only problem is teams like Boston, Toronto can't beat the Montreal Victory. Everyone just finds themselves coming up short against them. And while it's great for them in the standings, that's going to be very hard come playoff time when eventually they're going to have to play them. So, because there's so much NHL news right now, I guess that's it for the PWHL corner.
Well,
Brought to you by
hold on. You talk about Montreal just running away with the
oh,
standings right now. Let's remind everybody that how often the number one seed in a playoff goes on to win the championship. The President's Trophy curse in the NHL. You win that President's Trophy, you're most likely not winning the Stanley Cup. I know there are more teams, more games played at the NHL level than here when we have six teams and four teams make the playoffs. But I would hold off on just giving Montreal the championship at this point, and I
Well,
have a
hockey
good
still has to be played, of course.
a
I'm not saying
lot of
that,
hockey has to be played.
but I'm just saying Montreal is still the final boss by a large
Oh yeah,
margin. But
absolutely.
the good news is this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Montreal's playing Boston. And that's going to be a good game, especially with how Boston's been playing.
Yep. And
Nope.
yeah, so we'll be following the PWHL on prohockeynews.com. And as I just interrupted Jacob, the PWHL corner is brought to you by LDE Affinity Jewelry. Sorry, Jacob, to step on your toes there. I just wanted to get that point in because it's like,
Oh, yeah, no worries.
you can't do the final, yeah, like the standings in the regular season, they mean nothing come playoff time. They mean nothing except
Yeah,
for, where you play.
sorry to cut you guys off. I put something in the chat that actually said only 8 teams have won the cup since the addition of the President's Trophy in 1985.
And I think the last one to do it was Chicago in 2013.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a while. It's been a while. All right. So as we had talked about before, and let me just cut straight to the chase here. Um, if you would like to cut yourself up and trim yourself and make yourself looking nice, head over to our friends at Manscaped, manscaped.com/prohockeynews. Save yourself 20% off the trimming and cutting that you need to make yourself looking dapper and ready for the game. In the NHL, we talked about some trades that happened here at the deadline. Some craziness happened today. For me, I think the biggest thing since I mean the listeners of the podcast know I have split affiliations with the Boston Bruins and the Colorado Avalanche, and it's just it seems like I can't keep a captain on my team. Gabriel Landeskog's not coming back this season. Maybe he's retiring, maybe he's not. That's up in the air, but he's not coming back this year. So for the third straight year, Colorado's without their captain, and now Boston trades away their captain. So my teams are without a leader right now. I feel a little hurt. If you haven't read the headlines yet, Boston Bruins went ahead and traded away Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers for conditional first or second round picks. Jacob, I know you're a big fan of Brad Marchand. I know you're a big fan of the Boston Bruins, and you've been following this closely. Clue me in. What can we expect Boston to get for Marchand? What do you think? Are they going to get the 2026 pick or the 2027
So
pick or 2028 pick?
it is currently, so how the conditions work is it's a 2027 second round pick, where if Brad Marchand plays the 25 at minimum, 25% of this upcoming playoffs, that will be upgraded to a 2028 first round draft pick. That is unprotected to my knowledge.
Okay. So seeing where the Panthers are going to be finishing in the next couple of seasons, they traded him away for a bag of pucks, seems like.
And currently this season, in terms of just pure statistics, Marchand in 61 games has 21 goals and 26 assists, which is good for 47 points.
It's not a bad addition
Oh,
for
of
a
course,
team
it can't hurt.
looking to make a deep playoff push yet again, defending Stanley Cup champs looking to repeat. Nicholas, I know Marchand has a great following there in Toronto. I want to get your reaction as a Leafs fan, seeing Brad Marchand leaving the Bruins but staying in the division.
Um, I think we could all say this. Every single one of us hate Brad Marchand, but would absolutely take him if he came to our team.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I would absolutely not. No,
Okay.
no,
I
don't do that.
stand corrected. 75% would take him.
75.
75% of the league would take him. I honestly think it is a little bit wild, but as I mentioned before the podcast started, I think Boston realized after last night's horrific loss to Carolina that it's rebuild mode now, right? They're not going to get as far as they maybe thought they would have initially. And then Marchand got injured, and it just kind of went downhill. And I think that Zadorov stick break leading to the Jarvis goal was what caused them to actually now throw in, because they got rid of Coyle, they got rid of Carlo, they got rid of so many players, surprisingly, and they gained back a decent, you know what, a little bit decent return. So you know what, I can't complain. Staying in the division scares me because it's Florida, but
Yeah.
I was already sure that they were going back to the finals. Now this just sets it even more for me. Uh, I'm scared.
Uh, Blue, being a fan of a metropolitan team, does this impact your thoughts on your Rangers at all? Does this affect them in any significant way?
Only if they have. No, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Rangers right now are tied in points, but I think they're trailing Ottawa by a game in, who have they have a game in hand. Um, so they are outside looking in at the moment. So, really anybody's frightening to the Rangers. Um, what I think uh, irritates me more than anything else is that now Marchand and Matthew Tkachuk are on the same team. And now they have two of the same kind of person.
I was gonna say that's a
I'm
tough
keeping
pill to
it.
swallow.
I am keeping it clean.
But I mean, if New York sneaks their way into that second wild card spot, which they've been playing decent as of late, Ottawa not so much, Columbus about the same. They sneak their way into that second wild card spot. They're potentially facing Florida
Yeah.
in the first round. This could be a first round matchup for your Rangers.
And a first round exit, probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
well,
Well,
but would Brad Marchand be the key factor in that, or do you think that would have been
no,
a
no, no.
preset?
It's still a difficult match because um, Florida is just that good. Um, and despite being unpredictable and um, undisciplined as a team, they're still better than uh, most in the league. So
Now let me correct myself. I said if they got the second wild card, they would play Florida. If they got the first wild card,
first
they'd play
wild card.
Florida.
Yeah.
Second wild card, they're going to play the Capitals, which I think would be the same result, maybe quicker, but same result. Sorry, Lou.
Yeah.
All right,
No worries.
you know what that is. All right.
Yeah.
So we have Brad Marchand, captain of the Bruins, sent packing. Um, we have a player who was traded earlier this season to the Eastern Conference, now traded back to the same division he came from in Mikko Rantanen. I can't make heads or tails of this one. I know he wasn't working out well in Carolina. And to be honest, I know Colorado was trying to get what they could for him when they traded him to Carolina because he was a free agent at the end of the season. They weren't going to re-sign him because honestly, they're up against the cap and they're trying to protect as many assets as possible. They're not going to be able to afford to keep a player like Mikko Rantanen. So Carolina trades Mikko Rantanen to Dallas for Stankoven and a bunch. It looks like a bunch of draft picks. Jacob, I'm coming to you on this one. Because when draft picks get involved and conditional picks get involved, I it makes my head spin. Set me straight on this one. What's going which way here?
Well, they made it actually really easy this time for you. They're basically everything's first round or top 10 protected, top 10 or 12 protected. So that's good. That's really nice. And just assuming if they somehow wind up trading that draft pick, it's just the following year's draft pick. So that'll be for 2028, not for 2026. That's just top 12 protected.
Okay.
So they get the 2026 and 2028 first round and 2026 and 2027 third round draft picks and Logan Stankoven. I'm actually quite a big fan of this deal for Carolina.
Yeah. This little bit of security for Carolina as they try and battle Washington for the top of the division, possible President's Trophy. Um, but I don't know what worries me more, Carolina right now or Dallas taking on Mikko Rantanen. I Dallas is most likely not catching Winnipeg by the end of the season. I mean, they're 6 points back and they have a game in hand, so it's not insurmountable. But just the way Winnipeg's been playing this season, um, I I'm going to pencil them in as my Central Division champion at this point. But Dallas picking up a piece like this, being a playoff team who constantly gets deeper into the playoffs. A few years removed from a Stanley Cup appearance. I know COVID year, whatnot. Uh, but I don't know. A piece like this, maybe it's just because I'm closer in the Central Division here. It worries me a lot more. Lou, which piece do you think is going to have the bigger impact? Rantanen in Dallas or Stankoven in Carolina?
For me, it's Rantanen in Dallas. Uh, I question why. Yes, Carolina was up against some cap space, but why didn't they know that coming in? Why was no one in Carolina doing any kind of basic work to understand that Rantanen was not going to stay? And then to find out that he was never going to sign, now you're trading him away. I'll be honest with you, I think it looks bad for the Hurricanes.
I I don't. Well, I mean, I guess after this trade, I think it's a little bit of he wasn't fitting well with the scheme that they were trying to put out on the ice, which I don't know how a player of that caliber.
Right.
But then it comes out that he's not going to sign long term with Carolina because he wants the money that his skills would get on some other team. Um, yeah, I'm a little puzzled why Carolina agreed to that trade, but I also understand their win now culture because that's kind of what they're up against. They need to win now. And when they're chasing a team like Washington and the rest of the division is quite difficult, this is your shot right now. You have a good core. Let's supplement it. You're not looking to the next couple of years, but having a player who just joined you who kind of wants that money, his heart's not going to be in it, I guess. So going off to Dallas, being able to sign long term, I think his heart's going to be in it there. And yes, I agree. I think that is the bigger piece, the Dallas trade,
Yeah.
the Dallas acquires is yeah, I think the bigger piece. Nicholas, uh, do you have any counter? Do you think that what Carolina acquired is bigger than what Dallas acquired in this?
Um, I agree with Jacob. I do like Stankoven and what he can bring. He's 23 years old. He's got a good shot on him, right hand shot. You don't see that too much, in my opinion, especially from the center spot. But I don't think you can ever say that Carolina won in this. They offloaded a great player in Natchez and a very solid player in Drury to get one of the biggest players in this league, and then you offload him a month later, right? And the package that they got back, yes, two firsts, two thirds, and Stankoven, but for a player of Rantanen's caliber, I don't know. You can never say that they won the trade.
I will say, San Jose, or sorry, Dallas has also signed Stankoven for an 8-year extension, 12 million per year is a part of this deal.
Stankoven or Rantanen?
Right.
Rantanen, sorry.
Rantanen, okay.
Apologies.
But that's less money than he would have gotten in Carolina.
Yes.
Surprising.
They had the cap, Nicholas. They had the cap space for 12 million
They offered him 100 mil for 8 years.
for 8 years.
So I think that's 12.5 a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah. I also want to mention that, like, Rantanen in Carolina only 4 13 games, only had 2 goals and 6 assists. Like, he did not.
Yeah,
It's going to be interesting because he's only been successful in the Colorado system with players like Nathan McKinnon, like Gabriel Landeskog. So I'm kind of curious to see if that will be a theme here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's again, I was hoping he was going to come back to Colorado and we'd pay less for him this season and just finish the season with Mikko Rantanen back on Colorado. But I mean, I logically I knew that wasn't going to happen, but my heart still held out for it. It would have just been hilarity at the end of the trade deadline. All right. Also, Jacob, your Oilers
Yes.
making some moves.
Technically, yeah. By definition, they did.
Enough that you put it in the rundown.
So I
So
actually
what
put,
did they do?
So a few things happened. This actually says more about the Steve Yzerman in Detroit. So Jake Wallman last offseason was traded to San Jose alongside a second round draft pick for our favorite future considerations. Great player. And San Jose took Jake Wallman and sent him to Edmonton for Carl Berglund, who's an AHL player, and a 2026 first round draft pick that's top 10 protected. In effect, San Jose got out of Jake Wallman a first and a second round draft pick. That's just absurd to me.
But is this going to help Edmonton's blue line at all? Picking up Waldman, like, is this the help that they needed going into the playoffs?
I mean, any help is good help, but it gives them more options. I'm not really sold on Jake. I don't think we needed an offensively minded defenseman. I think the Oilers would have preferred a defensively minded defenseman, especially when you have players like Bouchard, Darnell Nurse, John Klingberg. Those guys are really offensively minded, and so is Wallman. And in the playoffs, you need those defensive defensemen. Those guys are huge and hugely important to your team. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean,
he is a pending UFA, so this is a rental.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like come trade deadline, like 60% of the trades made are just short-term rentals going into the playoffs by teams looking to make a long push. So, let's see if Edmonton can improve upon their finish last season. I hope not, but let's see if they.
I hope so.
They do.
I'd be a very happy person.
I know you would. All right. Craziness galore. Jacob, are there any other big trades that we need to mention here?
Oh God, yes. The Ottawa Senators and Buffalo Sabres made a big trade. Ottawa sends Josh Norris and Jake Bernard Docker, I think his name's Jake, and Bernard Docker to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins, Zach Gilbert, I think is his name, and a 2026 second round draft pick. That's kind of huge. Norris has been playing. He has an $8 million cap hit. He is showing the bits and pieces of really good elite play, but he keeps getting hurt, and these injuries are just starting to build up and build up. And he's never completed a full season or even close to a full season in the NHL because of injuries. So he's being sent off to Buffalo alongside a second. I accidentally put that in the wrong spot, but Ottawa sends Norris, Bernard Docker, and a 2026 second round draft pick for Cousins and Joel Gilbert. So I'm a huge fan of Dylan Cousins as well. But I feel bad for Norris. He's never going to see the playoffs in his life.
Yeah. I so I, as we come to towards the end of the episode and we start moving towards our picks here, one name I want to say that I am surprised I did not see moved, uh, Gibson from Anaheim. I was for sure I would have put money on the fact that he was going to leave Anaheim to a team that was a contender. I did not see his name. I saw it mentioned all over the rumors. Nobody bit. Lou, I know you cover a lot of the Kings and the Ducks down in South California. Um, uh, are are you shocked at all that he was not that didn't seem like anything was any offers were made on him, or uh, was there a team that could have used him?
I don't know that he uh, would have been out on the market. If you look at the standings, um, the Ducks are not completely out of it this late in the season. They're above 500. They put together a decent string over the last 20 games or so. They could challenge for the top. They're not going to challenge for the top without Gibson. So maybe it's an organizational thing, or it's Gibson with a very limited. I don't know what his no trade clauses are. It could be that he just doesn't want to leave Southern California. Um, I'm actually kind of glad that he's still there. He's a Duck, um, and I think if there's somebody who's the heart and soul of a team, I think it's Gibson.
Okay.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know if it's a good business decision, because let's face it, that's what this all is. It's all about
yep.
business. And I just think he is he is Anaheim. And I think the organization recognizes that, and they'll ride him until the end of the season, and they'll see what happens then. The other thing is who's going to use him?
Right. Most of the contenders have pretty good.
Tandems, right?
Yeah. Although maybe a team like Columbus might have been able to use him, a team who's on the bubble right now, shore up their goaltending just a bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, their pair is doing. Elvis has been a lot better this season than he was last and the start of this season when you thought he was going to get traded at some point or just waived. Um, I think Columbus is set. Who else? Just sitting here trying to think if anybody would need a goaltender to get them over the hump, maybe Vancouver.
maybe Edmonton.
Um,
I
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I
Not
see
not picking
Nicholas
on
nodding in
Jacob,
agreement.
not picking on Jacob, but
No,
yeah, that's probably not so bad. But yeah,
it's been their Achilles heel for how long, Jacob? How long have they really needed some solid goaltending?
When did Dwayne Rolson leave? 2006? Or
Yeah,
sorry,
something like that.
2008?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was just one name that popped out that I was sure was going to go somewhere, but just didn't. So, I mean, it feels not that he wasn't eventually traded, but it felt like a Jonathan Quick situation where, yes, the team and the fan core really, latched on to Gibson because he gave them a lot of good years,
Yeah.
and it he might need to go on and contend somewhere else and give him, a chance to win another cup. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that for me that just about. Oh yeah, and this guy Brock Nelson was sent somewhere to closer to me. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
right. Yeah, the Avs are certainly in the business of collecting.
Yeah. As we talked
I
about
think
them
they're
getting rid of Rantanen,
right.
they're bringing on tons of
Right,
pieces.
right. I think they're going to show up on I don't know what reality TV show it is, but Hoarders Anonymous or something like that. Um, 2 weeks ago we talked about who's going to be selling, who's going to be buying. Um, I was wrong all the way around, but in particular, I'm really surprised at how much selling the Philadelphia Flyers did. Uh,
Yeah.
Scott Lawton, Kuzmenko are gone. That's I think the Flyers threw in the towel.
Yeah.
They had to.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think their rebuild really is going as well as they thought. And this is just going to help them later on because they're young.
Yeah.
Mm.
How many more seasons do you think their head coach has?
Oh, this is it.
This is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get the same feeling here. All right. So it has been craziness with the NHL trade deadline. This is a lot more active than I remember the last few seasons being. I don't know if it's just a lot more big names had been tossed around and everything just seemed to be kind of compressed to the last minute. I don't know. Last season felt like it was a little bit more spread out. There were no huge, like blockbuster deals made right at the deadline, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't remember. Maybe my memory's not what it used to be as I'm
I think
getting
that's
older.
I think it's because the cap's going up by a large amount next season, and I think that's a large reason.
Oh, that does help. That does help. All right, Jacob. I think it's that time of the episode. I think it's time for us to bust out the crystal balls and make some predictions here.
Well, thank God, because I barely just finished doing them. I realized midway through, I was just like,
I was
"Oh
trying to
no,
stall
I
for you.
forgot." Thank you. I saw that. I appreciate that so much, and I got them all done. And for Nicholas, your first week doing the picks, pretty good, 5-1.
All
Doing
right.
great. Lou and myself also went 5-1, but
No.
Richard went 2-4, and now me and Richard are tied currently.
Well, I
That's
can't
what you
have
were
that.
hoping for.
I can't have that.
So this week's going to be really important.
5-1.
Although technically Nicholas is the first, but that's going to be changed as soon as he gets more games in and all that. Unless it doesn't, who knows?
That's why you got to start picking a lot of Toronto games for him, so he'll pick with the Leafs and eventually start losing, right?
Well, I was the only one I got wrong. And Lou. So,
All right,
Let's get
Jacob,
going.
what do we
or,
got
sorry,
this
not
week?
Okay, first game, the New York Rangers at the Ottawa Senators. This is going to be a close game. This is for the last playoff spot. So, Nicholas, I'm going to start with you.
Give me Ottawa.
Okay.
Sorry, Lou.
No, sorry.
Do you have a response?
You know mine.
Okay, New York Rangers. Richard.
Ooh, coin flip. Give me the Rangers.
Okay. I'm also going to side with the Rangers. Yeah, these games this week are really close. I just want to point out. Last few weeks we've had some a bit lopsided games, but this week is going to be close. Next one, another really good game. Toronto at Colorado. This game means a lot for both teams. Richard, I'm going to start with you this time.
Oh, I don't want to be a homer just because Colorado, like, they've done better, but Colorado's not that good at home. It pains me, but I'm going to take Toronto in this one.
Okay, Nicholas, I assume I can pen you down for Toronto as well.
Surprisingly, I'm going to take Colorado.
Oh, the flip flop.
I
Like
think
it.
it goes into OT, and I think we drop.
Okay.
If it does
Lou.
go to OT, yeah, I agree. But yeah, I'll stick with mine.
Lou, who do you got?
Based on Nicholas, so I'm going to blame him. I'm going to take the Avs.
All I'm going to say is we lost to Chicago and then got blasted by Vegas. So
That's okay.
Chicago, San Jose.
Yeah, okay. That just convinced me to pick Colorado as well. And
You,
another, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was looking at the wrong line.
Okay, well, next one. It's going to be Dallas at Edmonton. Edmonton's struggling. Lou, I'm going to start with you this time.
Uh, I'm good. I'm taking Dallas. Who's going to step in for Kadri?
For Cad
Yeah.
What's that?
Kadri's in Dallas?
No, no, no.
No.
Who's going to step in for Kadri with him being out the rest of the season?
Oh, you mean Kane?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Kane. Excuse me.
Sorry, I was so confused.
No, no, no. Sorry, sorry. Yeah, who's stepping
Amazing.
up for Kane the rest of the season?
I mean, he hasn't been here at all, so
Oh,
technically Trent Frederick.
okay.
Another
All right, never
trade
mind.
deadline acquisition.
I'm still going with Dallas.
Okay, Nicholas, who do you got?
I got Dallas as well.
Richard?
I'm gonna go Dallas.
Oh, I'm going to make it unanimous. I think Dallas also has this. Edmonton's struggling a lot recently. And another unexpectedly close game in terms of standings, the Montreal Canadiens at the Calgary Flames. Nicholas, who do you got? Are you a Habs hater?
Yes and no. I really like Calgary for no reason whatsoever, but I think Montreal to edges it.
Okay. Richard?
Let's see. Yeah, Calgary's been on the struggle bus recently. Give me, oh man, this really pains me. Give me Montreal.
Yes. Come to the dark side. Lou?
Calgary. I
Thank
really
you.
don't like Montreal.
It's just the Quebec advantage, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick Montreal as well. And for our last NHL game, a barn burner here, but a close barn burner. Chicago Blackhawks at the Nashville Predators.
Ugh.
Who do you got here?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm sorry, where's the home game?
Nashville.
Nashville. Give me the Preds.
Richard?
Man, looking at these lines here, you're right. This is going to be really close. But yeah, give me Nashville at home. Look at those
Okay.
road records, 7-20-4 for both of them on the road.
Oh, God. That's brutal. Nicholas?
You know what? I can never go against Luke Shen when he says I've never been on a team that can't score goals. Give me Chicago.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say the same. Chicago. I think Bedard's gonna put on a show. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know. Mrazek got. Oh wait, no. Mrazek got traded, didn't he?
Yes.
I'm actually going to Nashville then. Who's even the goaltender in Chicago? I have to find this out. Give me a sec.
Section 232, row H,
Yeah,
seat 10.
they're starting
Come
the
on
E-book
down.
tonight. Yeah.
They're actually taking David Ayers.
Oh yeah, definitely Chicago there. Oh yes, yeah, Chicago got Spencer Knight in the deal with Florida. Yeah, I like Spencer Knight. Sorry, rapidly going back to Chicago again.
He shot his bolt in the first game.
Oh no, Spencer Knight's a good goalie. And now
Still
for
young.
yeah,
He's playing for Chicago. I don't care how good you are.
but they're playing against Nashville.
That Winter Classic was one of the worst games I've ever been in. Just awful. Oh,
Okay,
God.
well,
Yeah.
and now for our PWHL game, Montreal at Boston. Nicholas.
They did me good 2 weeks ago. I'm taking the victory again.
Okay, Lou.
I'm taking the victory as well. I might not like the Habs, but I do like the victory.
And Richard.
The Fleet.
Okay, so that's how I'm going to get my points ahead of you. I'm going Montreal. And that's it for the PHN picks of the week. If you'd like to follow on Blue Sky, follow us on PHN Podcast using the hashtag PHN Picks.
All right. Parting thoughts. I'm going to give Nicholas a little redemption. I remember a couple of weeks ago, we went to him first and he didn't have a parting thought. Nicholas, parting thought this week.
The Leafs are winning the Stanley Cup.
Okay, I was asking for a realistic parting thought. Well, okay, yeah, sure. Why not?
All right.
We'll go with that. Wait, how are they going to do this? I'm just curious.
Somehow, some way, they're going to win more games than the opposition.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. Jacob.
So, according to a Reddit thread, there are 5 players that are currently on the Chicago Blackhawks payroll. This includes Mikko Rantanen, Seth Jones, Jake McCabe, Josh Bailey, and Shea Weber, and Laurent Brossoit. So I guess Chicago just is collecting players like Pokemon. I don't know how you can only have 3 spots. I don't know how they keep doing this, but that's my thought. This trade deadline has been completely insane. I got up really late and missed half of it. So it all came when I opened up my phone, it was just a long list of notifications of all these trades. And it was, wow, crazy trade deadline.
All right. Lou.
Well, I think the parting thought about the trade deadline is that I am surprised at the sellers and the non-sellers. Not that they were buyers. I'm going to pick on my Rangers. They were not sellers and they were not buyers. They made a couple of acquisitions, not so bad considering Adam Fox is probably on a long-term IR. They picked up defensemen out of Vancouver, and I'm just surprised. I'm surprised at what teams did or didn't do. So that's my parting thought.
All right. My parting thought, I don't have a whole lot this week. Like I said, I've been off for the last couple of days, so time has kind of stood still with me. I've been spending time with Philip, teaching him the trade of the podcast because he is eventually going to become the next podcast producer. But something that kind of caught me off guard as we're recording this today on Friday, March 7th, as everybody jumps onto the video call, I notice Lou wearing a North Dakota State University polo shirt.
Yes.
Go Bison.
Yes.
That's about all I got.
Oh,
It just took me by surprise. I didn't know you had any connection with them.
my 2 graduate schools, North Dakota for my master's, Ohio State for my PhD, both of them won national championships.
There you go. I
Yeah.
did not know that you spent any time with with North Dakota State.
Yeah, 2 years,
All right. Well,
78 to 80, 2 of the coldest years of my life.
I'll learn something new every day.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, thank you for listening to this edition of the Pro Hockey News Podcast. Thanks to all of our sponsors, My Custom Sports Chair, LDE Affinity Jewelry, Manscaped, FOCO. Thank you for helping us keep this podcast going. And listeners, thank you for making us a part of your routine. I will see everybody next week on the first line of the Pro Hockey News Podcast.